Hey bros, welcome to Spatula Bros. I'm the chef and today we're here for a little review of One Piece, the first one of the year. I'd say, if the timing is right, we're going to talk about chapter 1170, a chapter that seems almost at least to conclude this flashback. Amazing, yeah, maybe that's not the right word, but I thought amazing sounded good, even pharaonic, why not? Which was very, 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 very long. It's not over yet, I think we still have maybe 1 or 2 chapters left to conclude this flashback, but it was very, very long. I think we've been dealing with it for almost, well, yeah, more than 6 months now. So, a very, very good way to end the year 2025 and start the year 2026. It's always a time that signals growth, change, a new stage. So, I want to say, why not? An interesting chapter in many ways, points that we will obviously come back to during this review. Yes, there we go. Hey, this time I took notes, I found my post-its, I thought, hey, I'll take some notes. You never know. That way I might forget fewer things to tell you. Anyway, first notable thing in this chapter. Well, first we see Shanks and Gabban fighting. It's kind of cool. Well, it's not the first time for Shanks either, nor for Gabban. So we see them fighting, but it's still nice. It's kind of cool to see Shanks in action. Well, and Gabban gives us some info. He tells us, yeah, actually, when you use Conqueror's Haki, it hurts them more and they take longer to regenerate. Even if we can't kill them, we can still put them out of commission. And Shanks, he asks the question, obviously, but how do you know? Ray says, well, actually, they already came to attack us to get you back when you were a kid. And we crushed them. Which makes me think of 2 things. First, how come they never shared that information? That means they actually knew that Shanks was originally a celestial dragon. They knew about it. And no, well, nothing. At no point did this story come up. They were even being attacked because someone wanted to take the kid. And Roger just said, no, I'm keeping the kid, screw you. So they actually kidnapped a child because, okay, fine, the celestial dragons are assholes. We can agree on that, but still, it's his father. He wants to get his child back and he's like, no, I'm keeping him. They'll have to justify that eventually. It's a strange story. And the second thing is, aren't the Holy Knights kind of... How should I put it? I didn't want to get demonetized. I was going to say an S word, so I'll just say Swiffer. Aren't the Holy Knights kind of big frauds? Because every time we see them, they just get wrecked. Except right now on Elbaf, where they seem to be handling things pretty well. Except when Gabban shows up, he kind of puts them in their place, the guy, especially since there are some traumas. He acts like, he sees Gabban, he's like, oh damn, he's here, let's get out of here. Well, anyway, every time you hear about those guys, they just get wrecked. Actually, on God Valley, they're there, like, don't worry, the Holy Knights are here, and then bam, Rox just destroys them all by himself without even breaking a sweat. Like, what is this? You think, wow, what are these frauds? In a way, it's interesting because it means that even the elite doesn't survive, even when it's a warrior elite. In this case, even the warrior elite only holds on because of their privileges. Ah, that's interesting. Now we're getting into class struggle. Careful, that's interesting. Because the average celestial dragons, they're dumb, half inbred, they're useless. But actually, they only enjoy their privileges and their supposed positions in the hierarchy of this world. The Divine Knights are the same, except their privileges, in addition to prestige. All of that is about being immortal, because they suck the right... Damn, I'm being vulgar with others, I don't mean to. They suck the right dicks, if you will, so... As a result, they have the right to be immortal. That's why they don't die, otherwise they would have been out of the story for a while now. I find it interesting to point that out. Well, and obviously the only ones who suck and have powers and who are, how should I put it, worthy of their powers. Those who get screwed over in the end are mainly Harald, and apparently Rox too. I can't recall if Rox regenerates during the God Valley fight. But in any case, Harald is a divine knight who regenerates, except that he actually deserves his strength, if you will. Unfortunately, since he's sucked up, it backfires on him anyway. I find the metaphor, if you can call it that, interesting. Yeah, but it's still weird that they have all the information and never give it out. They only bring it up at the right moment. Oh, actually, I know, because they've already attacked us. So we knew from the start that you were a divine knight, that you were a celestial dragon. It seems no one told you. You found out on your own. It wasn't important, so we didn't mention it. This is a common issue in One Piece. The characters don't talk to each other. For example, Robin spent 2 years with the revolutionaries. No information. All I'm saying is she must know things. Since Dragon knows things, he's the revolutionary. He has a reason to revolt, to rebel. And she comes in, no, yeah, I met your Baron, yeah, a nice guy like that. But no details, not even the movie asks any questions either. You know, he sees Zoro show up, he's missing an eye, you lost your eye, how, no, he doesn't care. Did he even ask them where they were all this time? We don't know, actually, it's weird. So, anyway, it's a weird problem. In One Piece, the characters don't ask questions. But, well, you might say, that's a comment you could also make about Dragon Ball in some ways. But, well, Dragon Ball isn't as mystery-driven for that matter as One Piece is. Yes. It's odd the characters don't talk. Communication is essential. You knew where I came from but didn't tell me. My parents tried to get me back, at least my father did, but you never told me. It's weird, though. Which raises another question about Shanks as well. Once again, we'll end up getting the answer, but I'm still asking it. How did he know it was a celestial dragon, and how did he know that his father was that guy? And why? For what purpose? For what goal? He needed to pretend to be a divine knight. Sorry, why did he need that? He took the chance to free some slaves, but he didn't end slavery. He just freed a few at that time. That's all he did. So that wasn't his goal. He had another objective behind pretending to be a divine knight. Sorry. What's the point? I can't wait for them to give us the answer. There you go, yes. Then, at the same time as this battle, Loki goes in search of the fruit, the devil fruit, the somewhat sacred devil fruit that's in Elbaf's castle. So, as far as I know, unless I'm mistaken or I missed it, we don't know the name of this fruit. But it's a legendary fruit which is super dangerous, super powerful, and absolutely essential to be sure of being able to defeat Harald. By the way, after the wine, we see the bottom quite easily, it seems, and this fruit is guarded by a hammer that seems to move on its own. So, there's a debate about this famous hammer because at one point we see this hammer turn into a squirrel. We see 3 forms. It has the hammer form, there's the hybrid squirrel hammer form, and there's the squirrel form. Knowing that it's a giant squirrel, right? It's not a regular squirrel, it's not a little chipmunk, it's a big squirrel, human-sized. The thing is bigger than me if you want. So, the question is it a squirrel that ate the hammer fruit? Or is it a hammer that ate the squirrel fruit? Well, since it seems to have 3 forms, that's still, if my knowledge of One Piece mythology is correct. The fruits with multiple forms are more like zoans, most likely a mythical zoan. In that case, they have 3 forms. So you have the transformed form, you have the hybrid form, and then you have the form. It's 3 forms or 2 forms. No, it's 2 forms. I was talking nonsense. It's 2 forms in addition to the normal one. You have the hybrid, and then you have the full transformation. Like in the case of Kaido, who had the mythical dragon Zoan, and who could be a dragon hybrid, dragon man, and full dragon, that's all. Like Chopper can do normal reindeer, human reindeer, and he never does human. Yeah, that's weird. Well, anyway, I'm going off the rails. So, the question is, it's definitely the hammer that ate the squirrel fruit. Okay, but why does the hammer make lightning? Because you see, a hammer, we're in a mythology inspired by the Vikings in the world of Elbaf. You thought, well, it's better to say it. It's Thor's hammer. It summons lightning. It summons thunderbolts. But, so is it the hammer that summons lightning and ate the squirrel fruit? Or is it the squirrel fruit that summons lightning? And if that's the case, what is it? The connection between lightning and the squirrel, maybe it's some kind of thing in Viking mythology, I don't know. But what's the connection between a squirrel and lightning? So, the connection between lightning and the hammer? I get it, no problem. But the connection with the squirrel, that's why it makes things confusing. Because technically you think, well, it's a zoan, so you'd say the squirrel zoan, that's a zoan too. Actually, it works, so I don't know. It's like the chicken or the egg, honestly, I don't know. We'll get the answer eventually, I guess. Meanwhile, Loki is chained up with sea stone. And the hammer stays a hammer. So you might think, well, it's a hammer and not a squirrel. Not a hammer that turns into a squirrel. Well, it's a hammer that turns into a squirrel, and not a squirrel that turns into a hammer. You see what I mean? Or did I get mixed up in what I was saying there? Anyway, so that means that Loki, technically speaking, is fighting with 2 devil fruits. That's pretty interesting. And so I saw that there were some there. Once again, I'm drifting off. I'm going off on a tangent here. I saw several guys coming up with theories on social media. Like, hey, maybe Luffy's hat, the straw hat. It ate one, and Joy Boy will be a devil fruit. The straw hat is what ate a fruit. Why not? I kind of want to expand on that. Actually, it's just that I found the idea interesting that, in fact, Joy Boy isn't someone, it's a straw hat. That ate a fruit. That's it, that's all. Next information, please. And so, if until now, no one has eaten this fruit for centuries and centuries, so that means a lot of centuries, because giants live for a very long time, it's because no one has proven themselves worthy. And apparently proving yourself worthy isn't just about being noble-hearted or anything like that. Like the whole comic book thing, because that's a comic book thing, it's not part of the mythology, that whole thing. Only the one who can lift Mjolnir. Oh man, I'm going off the rails again. You have to prove yourself worthy, meaning in your soul, in your heart, to lift Thor's hammer. That's in Marvel, kind of like Excalibur too, it's that kind of thing. That's what I mean, I would expect it to be like that in reality. Loki actually is deep down worthy of being the defender of Elbaf. So, the squirrel, the hammer, recognizes him and goes, "Here, I offer you the fruit." Except apparently that's not what happens. It's like Loki comes in and lifts the hammer, and the hammer goes, "Oh, you're strong, here, I give you the fruit." I think it's a shame. There was a chance for some symbolism or something nice. We're obviously in a hurry, but it would have been cooler if it were more like that than what we've had so far. No one got the fruit because all the previous kings before Harald were bloodthirsty kings, so the fruit didn't recognize them. Basically, the hammer was telling them, no, you're too dangerous. And so it would have been something if Loki, who is seen by the other giants as someone dangerous and violent, showed up. And then they give him the fruit because actually he's really a bit noble at heart. So I think it's a missed opportunity. It would have been cool, but that's not the case. It's just because he's strong. That's what's a bit of a shame, but that's just my personal opinion. That doesn't mean the scene isn't good. I think there was a chance to do something cool, some symbolism that would have been nice, except it wasn't done here. And so Loki eats the fruit, which is really small like this, so it's like a little peanut, and he transforms into a big creature. Apparently four-legged, as the staging suggests. Most likely a wolf, so it would very certainly be the fruit of Fenrir. Who is the giant wolf from Norse mythology that's going to swallow the moon? Or something like that. There's a whole prophecy about this giant wolf. And so when the wolf eats the moon or whatever, that starts to trigger Ragnarok. So, Loki being a giant, turning into a giant wolf, that actually makes sense. He also hears this fruit could destroy the world, linking it to the legend of Fenrir. So once again, it actually makes perfect sense. And we see that this fruit seems, well, that Loki seems to take on several forms. So, we see one form, we can guess, a beastly form and a half-hybrid form, when he manages to grab his father by the callback, when we see the shadow. By the way, I found the staging of this fight interesting. Not necessarily super clear. Once again, it's not impressive. Not necessarily super clear, but interesting. To keep the mystery of Loki's form a bit of an open secret, really, but it keeps the suspense going, because here we have a scene from Loki's point of view. In POV, as they say, a very famous term on certain sites, obviously, or in video games, of course. Third, first person. Anyway, And you see him, he's fighting against his father, and he seems to be winning pretty easily. By the way, who thinks that this fruit must be very powerful? Since when does the fruit alone make you powerful? Because Luffy's fruit didn't make him more powerful, he had to master it. You see, right now you take the fruit, and that's it, you're a beast, it's weird. Well, of course, Luffy wasn't an experienced fighter when he got his powers. That's not the case for Loki, who already mastered Conqueror's Haki, and all that, obviously. Anyway, so this staging is interesting, pretty rare in One Piece, but it's interesting to maintain suspense, and obviously the ending scene is heartbreaking. Of course, there you go, Loki goes, hey, were you forcing me to kill you? He's raging as usual, and his father is kind of ignoring him. He goes, well, by the way, I want to thank you for Ida, because that's nice, it touched me that you destroyed the other people's village. It won't bring her back, but it shows I'm happy and you loved her too. Thank you. Well, it's touching, if you want, but I'm wondering, so this bastard, he knew actually, did you know that those guys poisoned your wife? And well, Loki had already done the job. Alright? D'accord. You still left him, Ogna Oof. That means if you had come home your wife, she would be dead. She was poisoned. You know who did it, and you wouldn't have done anything. Is that what you're saying? I know I'm being picky and annoying, but I really struggle to understand Harald's character. Now I understand his motivations, but sometimes the choices he makes, I don't get them. It's strange, but this situation hasn't occurred. But still, I mean, there he is. It's just that on his deathbed, he says, thank you for Ida. It's that you didn't know why he did that, and you still put him on. Wow, but I mean, if you put him on, wow. Him, because I get it, he burned down a village. Okay, but if he hadn't done that, what would you have done? Would you have just let that go? Weird, this whole thing, I think. We should also notice something. When Harald briefly regains consciousness, the seal on his arm is broken. So he's going to regenerate, obviously, but the seal is broken, and they emphasize that the seal is broken, he regains consciousness. So I thought my theory was busted at first. But maybe if they had really cut off his arm, maybe then they could have saved him. Actually, since we know now, or we can guess, that's the reason why Shanks let the monster eat his arm. To make sure that this time it's okay. Well, he couldn't regenerate, but I have no control anymore. I'm visible to Msama again. I don't have my arm anymore. I don't have the bucket anymore. So the key is the seal. There's a connection. If you cut the seal, most likely with the Conqueror's Haki, you might have a way, at least temporarily, to break free from Msama's control. That's an interesting clue. Well, it's an easy one, but at least we have a clue. Otherwise, why show the shot where the seal on the arm is a bit broken and cut by a notch? It's strange. Anyway, so we have the farewell scene where Loki uses his squirrel hammer that makes lightning to kill his father, and then he goes, yeah, I love you too, and all that. There you go. Anyway, so Loki is acknowledged by his father. It seems he has always been acknowledged by his father as his heir, and he entrusts him and his brother with the keys to the kingdom of Elbaf. Okay, it's beautiful, it's touching, there's no problem now. I have some questions though. How is it that Loki is still locked up, actually? Why is he in jail, I need to know? Because he has Shanks and Gabban who are there. They saw everything, they know what happened, and Loki is still in jail. How come? Well, maybe there are some weird things I didn't understand. Maybe he wasn't there. But no, it looked like he was in prison for that, Loki. There, when the sun arrived on Elbaf, or maybe he was in prison for something else. Because they say, yeah, Shanks is the one who caught him, but when did Shanks catch him? Maybe I'm the one missing the info. Did he catch him right there, or did he catch him later for something else? That's what I don't understand. Because Harujin still resents his brother. He says, I'm not letting you go, you killed our father, but if that were true, they'd never let him go. See what I mean? Or maybe I'm just confused, so it's weird. They'll have to explain to us why Loki is locked up in hell. And if he's locked up in hell, how come Gabban and Shanks didn't say anything at all?
They need to explain it to us.
Ah, there must be a reason, right? I'm not saying the reason doesn't make sense, but I want to know what it is. I need an explanation, and I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. Anyway, a pretty nice chapter, as usual. That seems to wrap up a very long flashback. Well, looking back, I still wonder what Gaudevelay was doing there. I'm sorry, but was it really relevant to put Gaudevelay there? Well, then again, it had to be included somewhere at some point, right? So it might as well go there, you could say. But was it really that important for Harald's journey to see Gaudevelay? Harald isn't even at Gaudevelay, right? He doesn't know what happened, does he? Maybe he found out about it. Then again, with Gabban, there you go. Once again, we're coming back to that, right? Do the characters talk to each other or not? Because if Gabban is on Elbaf and hangs out with Harald, they must have talked at some point. Yeah, so what happened at Gaudevelay? Well, actually, they were hunting slaves and committing genocide. And Rox tried to save his family and he died. So you work for the bad guys, and the guy was like, fine, no big deal, I'll sign the pact. You see, it's weird. Sometimes in One Piece, when characters talk, it stops working. It's stupid, though, I think. Anyway, I'll leave you with that thought. I'll probably get insulted again, but it's okay. Thanks for watching this video and following the One Piece reviews throughout this year, 2025. For my part, it was a pleasure. I'll leave you to drop a like and leave a comment, and I'll see you very soon on Spatchel Bros for new videos. Let passion guide you, yes.